So I guess I'm sharing my screen now. You can see me. Hi. Okay, I'm just gonna like keep that in the middle, I guess, so that I'm kind of looking close to the camera when I'm looking at myself. I don't know. I don't know if that helps. I don't know if it helps to see my face at all. Okay, so I'm just gonna open up one of the free tests here. So, oh, that is so weird. They don't offer the June 2007 one on Law Hub for free. I mean, I would definitely recommend upgrading to LSAT Prep Plus. If you're able to, if you have the resources. And yeah, if you don't have access to the tests through like some other program or package or anything. But yeah, the ones that are available like just for free to everybody are these ones. And like the LSAT Flex version of 73 is essentially the same test with one less section. So that's, yeah, it's not great. It's not great. It's not hard to get your hands on more tests, but I mean, if you were preparing for the Flex and these are the only ones that you were going to take in the online format, that would, yeah, that would be pretty rough. I don't know. Yeah, I definitely would want to have more. So yeah, I do think that the LSAT Prep Plus thing is worth getting. I think it's about $100, probably USD. Yeah. So, anyways, that's that. Not anything I can do about it. Okay, so let's go into 71 and just start doing some questions. So section 1, we've got ourselves some games. Awesome. Okay, so yeah, I mean, you can see like the features of Law Hub here. And I mean, this is super handy because this is exactly what the real thing is going to look like. So yeah, you can see like where each game ends. So if you go through like the first 5 questions, you've got the same setup, right? But then as soon as you switch question 6, you've got a new setup, you've got a new game. You can see how many questions there are per game. So like game 3, for example, only 5 questions, whereas game 4 has 7. So I would probably skip game 3 and come back to it rather than spending a bunch of time on that one and then like maybe not having enough time for the last game. So that's something you can also do for the reading comprehension sections, is make sure that you're spending more time on passages that have more questions associated with them. And it's similar where they're just like broken up by these little vertical lines. What else do we have here? So obviously in the real thing, you can't actually pause a section. I mean, maybe that's not obvious, but I think if you are familiar with the LSAT at all, there is definitely a major time pressure component. And you can see here, even as I'm talking, I've already used up almost getting close to 2 minutes there. So yeah, that countdown can definitely put the pressure on. You do get a 5-minute warning, which will pop up on the screen, and then you have to click away. So I would say at the 5-minute warning, it's probably good to like click through and just guess, because you're not like penalized for guessing. So if you guess incorrectly, it's 0, not -1. So there are some tests where they actually like penalize you for just making a guess. And so if you don't know, then it's better to just leave it blank, but the LSAT's not like that. So if you guess and you get it right, you get the point. Awesome. And if you guess and you get it wrong, it's just 0 anyways, which is the same as if you leave it blank. Probably spent too much time explaining that, but you know. Okay. So actually also this 4th game looks not too bad. Like just if we just look at the first question here and we look at all of the answer choices, it really indicates like a basic sequencing game or ordering game. 2 words, same meaning, right? Sequencing or ordering. So that's kind of handy, right? We've just got 1 through 7 for these guys. So yeah, I would definitely do game 4 before doing game 3 on this guy. Yeah. Like if we look at the way that the answer choices are in the first question, we've got both ordering and then a choice of books or selection of books, or, you know, some of the books are summarized, some are not summarized, which is, you know, there's a grouping component or a selection component or in and out component. Again, like different words or phrases indicating the same thing. So that have like basically the same meaning for games. So yeah, pretty handy stuff. Yeah, this guy, yeah, looks like it's a grouping game. And then this one, because I'm seeing, you know, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, this is a sequencing game. So that kind of gives you an idea of like the range of game types here. So we have sequencing. Sorry, this one here, grouping. This one is a hybrid, and this one is sequencing. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. I wonder if I can draw on this. So if I like annotate, yeah, I can draw. Okay. So draw little lines, and I'm also going to use some text. Okay, so, and I don't want it to be blue. Well, at least not light blue. Let's do dark blue. Okay, so F. Why is it? Sorry. I'm being very picky here about, there we go. Okay, so that's my first player. I'm actually gonna see if I can do them separately and then move them around. So if I do that, can I then select? I can. And I can like move it around. Oh, that's very handy. All right. Sorry, I know this is kind of silly, just like watching me figure out how to do this. But hey, what you gonna do? Just like hang out. You can read what's on the screen, see if you can figure out the diagram before watching me do it. And then you can, you know, by the time you're done, maybe you can compare to the way that I do it, my process. Okay. Right. So F has to be earlier than J and L. So that's my first rule. So, oh no, I made another text thing. I didn't want to do that. Select. All right. So F has to be earlier than J, and it has to be earlier than L. Kangaroos has to be earlier than J. And J has to be earlier than H. G out of the way. So J has to be earlier than H, and L has to be earlier than G. Oh, okay. So now I'm going to draw little lines in between them to actually indicate what the relationships are. So F has to be before J, and it's also before L. K has to be earlier than J. there. And J has to be earlier than H. And L has to be earlier than G. Okay, so that's my diagram. So hopefully yours looks similar. Yeah, I don't think there's too much variation that you would get with this. You might have some variation on like which players appear above other players, but I'd say left to right, you know, we're looking at the leftmost player being first and the rightmost player being last. So that would make sense. And we are focusing on those relationships. So for example, J has relationships to H, F, and K. It does not have a relationship to L or G. Okay, so J could be before or after either L or G, right? J could drop in between them. L and G could be like all the way at the end, or we could have F, L, G, K, J, H. That would be totally fine as well. So we've got to think of this as flexible and think of all of those pink lines as being able to expand. And so we can like hold on to the F and hold on to the J and just like pull and see, you know, where they end up, if that makes sense. So I do kind of think of them as like expandable and contractible. What we can never do is we can never make it so that J is in front of F. F always has to be in front of J because that's the rule. F must be released earlier than J. Okay, which one of the following cannot be true? F is second. So F has to be before 4 of the players. K could be before F, in which case F would be second and that would be fine. So since A is fine, we can eliminate it. So I'm gonna go back to mouse and then I should be able to click on here. Yes, all right. G is released third, also fine. F and L have to be before G, but K, J, and H could be after G. No problem. H fourth. So we have to have 3 before H. We have to have J before H, and K and F both have to be before J. But L and G could be after H, so fourth is fine. K fourth. So K has 2 after it, and there are no rules about what has to be before it, but F, L, and G could be before K, and that would be fine. All right, so we're left with E. K is fifth. So the reason that K can't be fifth is because it has to have 2 after it. And so that means the absolute latest position that it could hold is the 4th position. So E cannot be true. Show answer here. Pops up in, what's it called, self-paced mode, which is what we're in. It's not available in exam mode, but in self-paced mode, you can, as soon as you click select an answer choice, then you can click the show answer button. All right, and then it shows, okay, we're correct. So we can move on to the next one. What must be true? Does F have to be earlier than H? It definitely does. So F has to be earlier than J, and J has to be earlier than H. So we can kind of like go follow along this little trail here, and they're going in the same direction. So yeah, that's kind of handy. At least, yeah, I think that that's kind of handy. So yeah, if it's all going in the same direction, then yes, we can say that for sure. What can we not say? So we cannot say that L is earlier than H, for example. So even though L appears to the left of H, you know, if we're just kind of like tracking our eye line as we like read across the page, L's left of H, because they're not connected either directly or indirectly by one of those pink lines, we do not know what their relationship is, like their relative position to each other. Okay. So yeah, we can't say that L has to be earlier than H. L could be earlier or later than H. But A must be true, so we can select that. I mean, with a question like this, am I going to go through and do process of elimination? No. Okay, so I'm confident enough in the way that I've, like the process that I've used to get to that answer, to check to see that A is correct. And I'm happy to move on from that. I don't actually need to go through the rest of the answer choices and show how they could be false. So if at any point, like I'm talking about a game and you don't understand why an incorrect answer is incorrect, definitely let me know and I can explain it. But for a lot of these explanations, I'm just going to kind of go through the process that I would use to get to the correct answer, choose it, and keep going. All right. Question 3, if glaciers is released earlier than hurricanes, then each of the following could be true except. So we're looking for something that must be false. Okay, 4 of the answers are possible and we'll eliminate them. And then the remaining one is the one that must be false. And we get a question specific condition. So that gives us an extra rule. So if I were to manipulate this diagram so that G is earlier than H, what would I do? Well, I would take H and I would move it somewhere after G. I would take this line and I would expand it. That's interesting, the way that moved. So take that line and expand it, and then I wonder if I could just like copy paste that line. Does that work? No, it does not. Okay, so I'm going to have to draw another line. There. Oh, all right. So I have changed my diagram just for question 3. I'm going to have to switch it back when we go to question 4. But for question 3, this is my new diagram. So what could be true? Could glaciers be released fourth? Well, glaciers, yeah, it could be fourth. So glaciers still just has to have F and L ahead of it, and it definitely has to have H behind it, but that would mean its range is anywhere from 3rd to 5th. So yeah, it totally could be fourth. So in order to make it fourth, or if I wanted to prove that that could be true, I could come up with a solution where that's true. So why don't I go ahead and do that? And I'll just use a different color for these. But for this one, to like prove that that could be true, let's do K, F, L, G, J, H. Okay, so that's possible. Right, J 3rd, that's also possible. So K and F would have to be before J, but we could put them in any order. So let's try F before K now. F, K, then J, then LGH. So that's possible. Kangaroos is really 2nd. We actually already have that solution here. So this is an example of where we could use like our bank of acceptable solutions. So here's one acceptable solution, here's another. Those are both now in our bank of acceptable solutions. And I've used that bank to identify C as also something that's possible. Could lovebird be released 3rd? Again, using that bank, I know, yes, it could be. Could lovebird be released 5th? So I know by process of elimination that that must be the correct answer and it must be false. Why must it be false? Well, it must be false because now, because H has to be after G, we have 2 players that must be after L, not just one. So I have to go back to mouse here. E is the correct answer, show answer. Oh, there we go. Okay, and then when we get to the next one, I'm gonna have to do a bunch of erasing. Yes, all right. So I don't want to clear completely. I just want to start erasing all these things. Erase this line. Ooh, I didn't actually mean to erase that. That's fine. I'll just draw that line again there and go ahead and move the H back. So just going back to the original diagram we had. If L is earlier than K, all right, so now we're going to have to really switch up this diagram here. So the big thing that I'm going to want to do is kind of expand that pink line because I want to get L to be like to the left of K. So I sort of want to expand this line and then move all of these pieces down at the same time. So I wonder if I can actually select all of these guys. Oh, no, they're not letting me. Okay, well, I'm gonna just redraw the whole thing, I think. Is that gonna be easier? Yeah, because I'm gonna have to redraw this whole thing again. Okay, so redrawing it. What am I starting with? Let's start with text and redrawing my players. So we've got, if L is before K, then F and L have to be before K, right? And then J and H have to be after that because they have to be after K. So the only player that is missing is G. So G has to be somewhere after L. So G could be where this dash is, this dash, or at the very end. So I'm just going to kind of look at this as that's my main diagram. And then G is just going to be like bouncing around in there. So G, okay, and G could be in not like any of these spots. Okay, so I could jump into any of those spots. It cannot be first though, right? G still has to be after L. Alrighty. Which one of the following could be true? Could Lovebird be released third? No. It has to be second. Could it be fourth? No, it has to be second. Could Hurricanes be earlier than Lovebird? No. Could Jets be earlier than Glacier? Yes. And could Jets be earlier than Lovebird? No. Alrighty. So yeah, G is the one that can move around a whole bunch. L is stuck in second place. F is stuck in first place. So definitely the rest of them are false. Okay. Clearing that again. All right. Substitution question. Yay, our favorite question type. All right. Which one of the following, if substituted for the condition that Fiesta must be released earlier than both J and L, would have the same effect on the order in which the films are released? So the rule that we're trying to find a substitution for, the rule that we're trying to find, basically like, it's kind of a logical equivalent, but the original rule isn't going to be logically equivalent to the correct answer choice here because it's more about that this rule plus the other original rules will give us logically equivalent set of acceptable answers to the original rule plus the other original condition. So it's not necessarily going to make sense if you look at the rule on its own. You have to look at how the other rules interact with it. So let's look at how the other rules interact with rule 1, which is the one that we're focusing on here. So F has to be earlier than both J and L. Both of the other rules end up interacting with that because rule 2 involves J and rule 3 involves L. So the diagram that we end up with is like connecting all those players. So if we were to take answer choice A, only kangaroos can be released earlier than Fiesta. First question I might ask is that true? Okay, so the correct answer here is definitely something that must be true, right? If we're going to have the same effect on the order of the films, that means that this is something that like has to fit with the original order that we had because we're looking to get the same orders. It has to fit with the original set of acceptable solutions. So A is definitely true. Now, if I were to look at that as if it were just a rule that I encountered in this game, how would I write that out? Only K can be earlier than F. Really, the important thing that that's telling me is that none of the other players can be earlier than F, therefore they must be later, right? So to say that K can be earlier than F doesn't tell me that it is earlier. It just tells me that it's possible. It could be before and it could be after, potentially, right? Like it's not locking anything in, but it does tell me that all the other players are locked in and that they have to be after F. So that's super important. So what this one is saying is, so here we have F. So it's saying we've got F, and then after F, we're going to have J, and then we're going to have H, and we're going to have L, we're going to have G, and all of these guys have to be sometime after F. So now selecting F, I know J, that's not helpful. Come in. All right, J, H, G, L. All right, I don't know that that really helped anything. So all of these guys have to be after F. So that definitely tells me that F has to be before J and L, right? Which is the thing that we're trying to find a substitution for, right? It also tells me that F has to be before H and G. Now, that's okay because that's actually just redundant with what the other rules are telling me, right? So as soon as I add rule 2, I now know that I can move H even further. So I can actually move H down here, right? Move this down here as well, just reuse that line. And I'm getting the same relationship. And then rule 3 comes along and we end up, knowing that G can move even further down, and we can maintain that relationship. And of course, rule 2 also tells me that K has to be before J. So if I wanted to actually write that in, we basically end up with a diagram that looks very similar and is logically equivalent to the original. So A is the correct answer here. Okay. Yep. Back to mouse. Left. Okay. Yeah, so that's quite handy. Let's look at our other answer choices and just show how they're not going to be a good substitution for the original rule. So B isn't even true. Kangaroos doesn't have to be earlier than lovebird. They don't have a direct or indirect relationship to each other. If I look here at like where that relationship would be broken, it's broken as soon as I turn that corner there. So L has to be after F, but L doesn't have any relationship to J and doesn't have any relationship to K. Okay, because as soon as we turn around, then we're basically just saying that L and J both have to be after F, but we don't know whether J or L has to be before or after the other one, right? So B is definitely out. Doesn't even pass that must be true test. C, F must be released either first or second. Now that is true, right? That's the range of F because it has 4 players that must be after it. However, what C doesn't do is it doesn't prevent us from having L before F. And the original rule did prevent that. So C is too permissive because what it would allow is that as long as F is second, then any player that, could potentially take that first spot could be before F. And so if we keep the other rules in there, then J couldn't be before F because K has to be before J, but L could potentially be before F if we ignore the original rule 1 and we use answer choice C instead. I'm going to say that again. So L could be first if we ignore the original first rule and we use answer choice C instead. So that would be a different effect on the order, right? That wouldn't be the same effect that we had with the original rule because the original rule prevents L from being first. So we have to eliminate C. D, Fiesta must be released earlier than Kangaroos and Lovebird. Doesn't have to be true, right? Fiesta does not have to be earlier than Kangaroos. E, either Fiesta or Kangaroos must be released first. That is true. But if Kangaroos is released first, Fiesta could then be anywhere. And so that's, again, not the same effect that the original rule had because the original rule makes it so that F is really limited. F has to be either first or second. Whereas E, if we use that, if F is first, okay, fine, then we have the same effect. But we could fulfill this rule by putting K first, and then there's nothing at all controlling F anymore, and F could just be anywhere. And so, yeah, that's not going to have the same effect as the original rule, which really constrained F a lot by putting like those 2 players after it, which then have 2 players after them. So yeah, so that's why A is the correct answer. I would think that B and D should be fairly easy to eliminate. And then C and E, probably E would be easier to eliminate than C, and C would be the trickiest to eliminate. The reason that A, I think maybe would be overlooked is because it doesn't include J or L explicitly, right? So they're included because they're not K, not because they're actually mentioned explicitly. Yeah. So yeah, that was a pretty long video discussing this game, but hopefully that's helpful. And it can kind of give you a little bit of an introduction to how to use Law Hub also. Yeah. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay. Have a good one.